Hi, this is Harvey Mason.
This is Charlie Watts.
Okay, this is Ginger Baker.
This is Rayford Griffin.
This is drummer Chad Wackerman.
This is Dennis Chambers.
This is Vinnie Colaiuta.
Hi, this is Stanley Clark.
My name's Ellen Holsworth.
This is Jimmy Haslip of the Yellow Jackets.
Scott Henderson, guitars for Tribal Tech.
Hi, this is Larry Coryell.
I'm John Patitucci.
This is Gary Willis.
Hi, this is guitarist Mike Stern.
This is Jorge Strunz.
And this is Ardeshir Farah of Strunz and Farah.
Hi, this is Gary Burton.
This is Alain Caron.
This is Jean-Luc Ponty.
Hi, this is Wynton Marcellus. You're listening to the main man, Tony Palkovic's Jazz Show on KSPC 88.7.
KSPC 88.7 FM Claremont. On the show today, it's bassist, drummer Dante Fire. Welcome back, Dante.
Well, thank you so much, Tony. It's glad to be here.
Yeah, and you're going to be playing this weekend at Mario's. It's Friday, right?
That is correct. Tomorrow I'll be at Mario's. Busy weekend, a lot of things happening over the weekend, but yeah, that'll be the first thing tomorrow, Mario's, Riverside.
And then Sunday you have your, over in Lake Elsinore,
Yeah, it's been a very successful run.
What's it called?
Residency. It's called Jazzy Sundays at a wonderful place called Pints and Quartz in this great city of Lake Elsinore. We do a pro jazz jam. We do a performance and a pro jam.
Yeah, and then who's in the band for Mario's?
Oh wow, I got a great lineup. It's a quartet. I've got wonderful sax player Marcus Wilshire. Marcus is a graduate of University of Texas, Austin, and got his doctorate there. Just blows it up on the tenor. I mean, everything.
You mean North Texas State?
No, he didn't go to North Texas. He went to University of Texas, but in Austin, I believe. But I know North Texas is a wonderful program. But yeah, he went to the Austin area. And but yeah, can't say enough about him. Great player, ranger, educator. You know, he does a lot of academic things as well. On the drums, great Nat Scott. Nat is a Sonar artist, Sonar drums. And he's also a label mate of mine with Aquarian Drumheads. But Nat is...
what do you mean the label made of yours?
The brand, Aquarian Drumheads. We're sponsored or endorsed by Aquarian. So, yeah, he'll be on the Ket. He's done a lot of things over the years. I think he was for a minute with Jeff Lorber, a lot of other people. And guitar player, young cat, his name is Edgar Aldana, will be the guitar.
Yeah,
and I've been playing with a lot of younger players lately. I think it's a great thing to expose players to venues, to the art. And often with me, I don't have this time, is a wonderful young pianist, Matt Yang, who is I've been doing a lot with Matt. But we have Edgar will be the other part of the quartet for this weekend.
You're living in San Diego now.
Yeah, living in San Diego area.
So those guys are from there?
No, actually, I kind of have a crew here, a crew there, and but most of the cats on this gig are transplanted somewhere in the LA-IE area.
Yeah, and you like to play Mario's, but you like to do it as bass player usually, right?
Yeah, typically what I do is, if it's my show, my gig per se, I usually front it on the bass and freelance as a drummer. But sometimes I switch it up. But it's pretty much been that way lately. It's just easier that way.
But so what's the instrument you've been playing longer, drums or bass?
I started them really at the same time.
Yeah,
and the way I came to it, for people that don't know, I originally started on the trumpet, and but always wanted drums. And drums never came. Eventually, was able to kind of scrape together, as a kid, lemonade stand, paper route, etc. I got my own kind of mismatch drum kit, but actually before that, I was given a guitar after playing the trumpet for a minute, and kind of gravitated to bass lines because it was more percussive.
Yeah.
So the bass and drums kind of came at the same time.
Well, it's good that you worked for your instrument.
Yeah, I had to do that. Early lessons, valuable.
Did you pay for the lessons too?
Well, no. I actually, when I say early lessons is just the economics. things are not easy, basically. Those kind of lessons.
Would you elaborate on that a little bit?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of people that maybe they're given lessons as a kid, but they don't really stick with it. I was given very few, as a young child. My older sisters had, the elaborate piano lessons, but music never stuck with them. It's like, I wish somebody would have given me that, but that's just what I wanted to do. I guess it wasn't what they wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do. The lessons in life were having to, being independent, having to get it on your own. Whereas it was economically, it wasn't a problem, but it was more or less, I guess my family didn't want to hear drums. So I had to get it on my own. I think that's what it was. But it worked out. Valuable lessons were learned in independence and kind of going for it,
Yeah. Well, have you noticed drums for younger people? It doesn't seem to be as popular as it was. Do you notice that?
With the DJ era, you mean?
Yeah.
I think to a degree, perhaps, but really depends on the setting. Who your friends are.
Well, yeah.
But for the most part, we're in an electronic-driven age, and I think that goes with the territory. But there's a lot of millennials that are, going back to the roots of reading and writing music and actually playing an instrument. But for a brief period, I taught at the college level. And some of the students...
What, you mean drums or bass?
Well, actually, I taught about the music business at the Arts Institute in San Diego.
Yeah.
And
you got to tell us some things about that.
Oh, absolutely. That was a remarkable experience of being able to interact, with the student in kind of like in every capacity, teaching, but still kind of having the opportunity to see what was really hip, what's current.
Yeah,
and what's today, and so one of the pushbacks of the DJ students in some of my classes was, well, I didn't invent the turntables, I've just used them. So okay, that's fine, that's a fair argument, and that's just kind of the way it is today. I know sax players that do gigs with a DJ, and okay, so fine, that's accessible today, and it's probably a nice way to get people that maybe are not into jazz per se exposed to it, in baby steps.
Yeah. Why don't you, since you were teaching music business, why don't you give us a class here? What about the music business?
Really, in short, I just think that every person that is serious, about doing this as a living should probably take some classes in business. Whether they are music business classes or not, which are kind of hard to find, but this classes in business in general. But my area was dealing with publishing and contracts, royalties, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's important to have that kind of understanding how to negotiate a contract, what to look for, and what the trends are, what the pitfalls are. And just the direction that you want, having an idea of the direction that you want to go if you're given that opportunity.
What about publishing? As far as, I know you were telling me you had something that Spotify licensed for, was it a film?
Yeah, one of the tunes of the last album, they have licensed the song for use. So I can't really say at this point what film it will be in, but they're kind of given an opportunity to use it for certain things, and so I think that's a great revenue stream for musicians, for artists that write, that do their original music, in addition to actually performing, because the opportunities to make a living are diminishing with the internet. The internet is a double-edged sword. It's an amazing thing, exposing you. I mean, I have which is as of late, is really a surprise to me. I have a really big following in Russia.
Yeah.
Much bigger than I would have ever expected. And I've never been there. But out of, I think strategically it may be a good fit at some point to do some shows there. But the internet is exposing the artist to just amazing opportunities. But at the same time, a lot of music is free, So
Yeah.
so where does the artist make money from the performances, from really building a brand? And as far as publishing is concerned, owning your publishing, and it's maybe difficult if you are signed to a major, but if you're an indie artist, you have 100% of that.
Who are you with, BMI or ASCAP?
I'm with BMI.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been with BMI since 1988.
Yeah. So the way I've seen it happen is, say, if you do get some licensing with a film or a TV thing, it takes quite a while for you to get your check from, for the publishing.
It takes a while, but I think the idea is that there are different revenue streams, and we can no longer rely, wholly just on if something is played on the radio, which is that's the main way it was for many years. But there's other ways of looking at it.
Such as
films, television, that sort of thing.
Yeah. What's this about? I've heard too, it's very minimal as far as what you receive, say, from Spotify.
Oh, it's fractions.
Is it 1/1000th?
Yeah, maybe
of a penny.
Maybe a little bit more than that, but still fractions of a penny. And so it takes a lot of spins, so so to speak, in order to really do anything of any great value. But from some of my research, what I have found is that even though there's a lot less money being generated, unless you're like a major, artist, you're more likely to have greater exposure than not by just having your product out there, having, hopefully a fresh product and a cycle of new things that keeping people engaged.
Yep.
And not. And again, as I was, alluding to earlier, a lot of music is free, unfortunately, for the artists. But at the same time, you have an 8% more chance of just exposure, even though something may be downloaded in some country for free, than by not having it.
Yeah.
So what does that do for the artist? Simply gives you a greater opportunity to say, this is my calling card. I'd like to do some shows in this area. I'd like to do some shows in your venue. And you do have that as a tool in your arsenal by having the product, making up the difference and from a live setting.
Yeah, I see that Spotify too features. They'll send a notification of the artists that you like that they're playing in the area. Do you have to sign up for that?
No, a lot of things now are just kind of like automatic.
So they just take care of that without even the artist even dealing with it.
Exactly.
That's a good deal.
Yeah.
How do they find out about the performances, though?
Well, I'm thinking of something different. You're talking about, in other words, like, for example, yesterday, I believe Wynton Marsalis was in San Diego, I believe, at Balboa Park. So people might see that on Spotify. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, they'll say artists in your area.
Yeah, that is something, that's a paid service. That's like another one of the revenue streams. It's a paid service.
Well, that's a good feature about it.
Yeah.
So what else? What else about teaching music business did you cover?
A lot about radio promotion as well. I mean, for a while, I worked in radio promotion with EMI Records. So was able to. Yeah. I worked with Monty Lipman. He runs Republic Records, which is a division of Universal.
Yeah.
Under them is like Cash Money, Lil Wayne. With people that are into hip hop. Also under them, I believe, is Big Machine, Taylor Swift's label, which I think she's about to part with in a month or so and be an indie artist.
Yeah.
But yeah, I work with those folks and was able to learn a lot about the industry. But, I realized, this is great to know, but I want to be an artist. So I didn't do that too long, but definitely have that to fall back on.
Yeah, you got all that knowledge. Yeah. So you're down in San Diego. What's happening with the music scene down there?
The music scene is it's flourishing. It's thriving. And what I've found is that there are traditional clubs, if you're into jazz, Dizzy's or somewhere like Croce's. But I found that it's a win-win situation to reach out to other venues that maybe perhaps they don't have a jazz program and kind of getting things set up. And I think I've had some success with that. Some newer places that I'm, blessed to have an opportunity to do some things at, like, for example, Saturday, I'll be at a place called Ventana Wine Plus Dine. It's a great venue, which is in a Lexus dealership. It's 2-story above the Lexus dealership. They call it the Lexus Club or Ventana Wine Plus Dine. So I'm looking forward to doing a similar jazz series as I do in Lake Elsinore at Pints and Quartz there. And we're kind of working the kinks out of that deal to do that. But I guess the main thing is we do have this cycle of traditional venues, but strategically and logistically, it may not always be possible. Like I'm glad to be back at Mario's, but there was a couple of years where it just wasn't possible, or I was doing other things and the dates didn't kind of tie together. So where I was, I had to, map out some, another strategy. But glad to be able to bring, what I do back to the IE for the IE folks.
Yeah, Mario's tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, yeah.
Which is the, what's the date today? I don't even know.
Today is the 4th, tomorrow's the 5th. Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, that means the freeways are going to be crowded.
No, it's going to be a straight shot to where I am at Mario's.
Well, I didn't mean it that way. If you're going to L.A., I remember I was stuck in the freeway for 3 hours.
Okay.
To go to L.A.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
On the 5th of May? Like 1 year?
Yeah, it was that day. I remember that.
Okay.
I thought, well, that's not a day to go down to L.A. for sure. And then as far as over at when you do the you call jazz, what's the
I call it Jazzy Sundays.
Okay, so
Sunday at Pints and Quartz. Jazzy Sundays is a series I host. Yeah.
So what you have a kit set up there? How's it work?
There's different artists that come through every week, and I have my house band, and I appreciate the contribution of those cats, which is amazing. But you never know who's going to show up. I think last week, Jason Weber, the sax player Jason Weber, kind of was in the audience, and so he might be back and do a few numbers this coming week. So he's a pretty well-known sax player in the San Diego area and Temecula area.
Yeah, well, what kind of tunes do you play with the band?
Other than some of my original charts, we do a lot of standards, a lot of fusion, and we try to mix it up. Maybe the first set is probably more in the straight-ahead idiom, and then we kind of, smooth it out.
What do you play? What tunes?
Wow. I mean, everything from the book. Everything from the book. Just going to the book.
Yeah.
Going to the book. I wouldn't pick out anything in particular. Tunes from Dizzy.
Yeah.
Tunes from Coltrane,
And if you're just tuning in, it's bassist, drummer, Dante Fire. Back on the show. He'll be playing at Mario's place in Riverside tomorrow.
Tomorrow night, yeah.
On the 5th.
On the 5th.
Is it a quintet?
It is a quartet.
Oh, quartet.
Quartet. But we might have, might be a fifth person may show up.
And you'll be
I hear tell.
Yeah, you'll be on bass.
I'll be on bass tomorrow night. Yeah, I'll be on acoustic and electric.
And then Sunday in Temecula, every Sunday.
Yep, every Sunday no, it's Lake Elsinore.
Oh, Lake
Elsinore. Pints and Quartz, Lake Elsinore, 6 to 9 every Sunday. Pro Jam, and if you're semi-pro, that's fine. We welcome everybody.
Yeah, so that's been going on for how long?
Since July.
Yeah.
Yeah, since July. So we're excited and happy. Got a lot of new ideas, new energy, and things that we are hoping to implement. But happy to be able to do this. It's a great honor and a privilege to be able to do this.
Okay, you want to play one of your tunes?
Yeah, let's do it.
You have a new one you just released.
Yep, the new album's called 9 Red Pearls.
And then we were talking the one prior to that in 2017.
That's the album is called Stink Eye from 2017.
Well, what do you want to do? You want to do the first track off the new one?
Sure.
Okay. So it's ready, right? It's a short one.
It's ready to go.
So what before we do it, tell us, you're playing drums on this.
I'm playing everything on this album.
Yeah.
I heard no other players. I'm playing the drums, the bass, and the keys.
Okay.
on this album. And every project's a little bit different, but this album was dedicated really to kind of showcasing the drums a little bit more and not so much the bass this time. So there's probably no solos on this except for drums and keys. So this first song is called New Fusion.
And it's off your album.
9 Red Pearls.
Yeah, it's Dante Fire. Here we go.
KSPC Claremont, 88.7 FM, voted the Inland Empire's best radio station.
And if you're just tuning in, it's Dante Fire on the show. And we've just heard two from his new one, which it's called 9 Red Pearls. And we've heard Occam's Razor?
Occam's Razor.
Occam's Razor.
Yeah. Interesting title.
How's that?
Just the meaning behind it. And in short, it's kind of like when people are faced with conflict or confusion, usually the answer to their problems is the simplest explanation. So that's what Occam's Razor is, the simplest explanation.
You mean in one word or so?
No, just psychologically, people try to read things and make it complicated. So if you have a choice between several options, it's usually the simplest is the actual choice that you should be making.
You mean like, I don't know?
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. But that would fit into that category?
I don't know. I guess it depends on how you look at it.
And then before that, we heard also New Fusion.
New Fusion,
yeah. So this has been out for since...
July 9th. It was released on July 9th. This album.
July 9th. And then you said you recorded this on Logic.
Yeah. I have, my studio. I mean, over the years, I've done things at a lot of nice rooms, but this studio attracted Faith House Studios, which is my studio, and I primarily used Logic and made the transition from the last album from using Logic 9 to using Logic 10. I love it. Great sounds, and what I like is that you're able to, transfer over your command keys to the newer, upgraded version. So there's kind of less of a learning curve. So love it. It's great.
Yeah. And then you were playing your kit on that. You soloed. What do you have for your kit?
On this album, obviously it's all about Pearl, but, I have about 7 different drum kits.
You do?
7. So on each song, I use a different snare, different snare sound, but mainly it's Pearl on this album, but on that kit, it's actually a Yamaha kit, a Beach Custom kit on that particular tune, Occam's Razor. And that's something in my arsenal. I love the Beach Custom sound.
Meaning you acoustically do have 7 kits.
Oh yeah,
absolutely,
okay. Absolutely, yeah. No triggering. I'm back. Those are real drums on the album.
What do you think about these triggered sounds?
I mean, I think it's okay, but I love tuning drums. It's just like a passion to get experimenting to get the right sound. I've done some videos for Aquarian Drumheads about tuning and different things that you can use to get a certain sound. But I think it's okay for someone if that's all they have at their disposal. But I like tuning drums and getting a fat sound myself, acoustically if I can.
Yeah. How about miking techniques?
There's a gazillion of them. So, I think that the ticket really is experimentation, and between using more of a room sound or direct sound. But I prefer less of a room sound and more of a direct sound, like on the drum. And from my experience, unless your room is really tuned and ported, it just kind of gives you more of a live sound that you may not necessarily want, as opposed to that direct sound. So I use less of the room and more of the direct, on the mic. And there's different theories about, the dimensions of how far the overhead is from the snare, for the room sound, as opposed to everything. I think that's a great rule of thumb, but you can't really beat just experimenting with it to get the sound that you want. I think it's important once you get it right, use it. So what I've tried to do is on most of the album, and some of the album is experimental. Some of the album, for example, I started with just the drums and composed the music around the drums.
Yeah.
And I think that's great because then I'm totally open to everything. I get the drum sound that I want. I get the rhythmically, doing what I like, and putting everything around that. I find that works. Not on every tune. On some of the tunes, like on the title track 9 Red Pearls, I did that. But on something like Occam's Razor, it really started with the bass line. And I suppose it's somewhat unique that the bass is playing the melody with the drums. You hear the tags the bass and drums together, nothing else, and that's kind of the melody or the head of the song, just the bass and drums as a head. Simple. Again, the concept is the simplest explanation, so it kind of all ties together.
Yeah, that's what I love about multi-tracking, when you can come up with all these ideas.
Yeah.
By just listening to the playback and composing around that.
Yeah.
That's just the whole different fun time right there.
Totally, it totally is. And I learned actually a lot of that just from documentaries about Zawinul. I mean, he's one of my idols, from a producer standpoint, because with Weather Report, yes, it was about the playing, it was about the composition, but it was about the production as well.
Definitely.
And they were pioneers at editing things, and a lot of the sounds that he got was really experimentation. And, I think he, at the time, had like a little Tascam 8-track, and they would do, their Weather Report demos in his house in Malibu, or actually Pasadena, I think he lived. And
he lived in Malibu later.
Yeah, later.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, you were going to say.
Oh yeah. Just experimentation and with the production. So just a different school of thought to get the sound that you want. Looking at the production.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Zawinul a little bit. Since you're into Weather Report, what'd you like about Weather Report?
I loved the fact that, to my thinking, that they were very much like the Picasso of music. Cubism, just out, but still very hip, very at the time very fresh. I mean. Even today, just some timeless stuff, and I mean I'm not talking just Birdland, but just some timeless things. In fact, I'm recently adding a few Weather Report charts to some of my shows.
What are you doing?
I'm going to do River People, one of Jocko's tunes. That one for sure. There's a couple of others I can't really think of, but. It's really important, for me to kind of pay homage to, address some of those things kind of with my way of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorites, Palladium. I love that tune.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's
that one.
On is it on Black Market? Or no, that's on Heavy Weather?
Yeah, Heavy Weather.
Yeah, Heavy Weather, okay. Yeah.
Wayne Shorter wrote it. Mm-hmm. That's a great one.
Oh, I love a lot of the Shorter stuff,
And then, you being a bass player too, before Jaco Pastorius, I really liked the bassists before that too, where they were at.
I know who you're talking about. Alfonso.
Right.
Alfonso Johnson.
About Miroslav Vitos.
Oh, yeah. Amazing. And that's important because I've been doing a lot of upright lately.
Well, I was going to ask you. It sounds like, was that a real upright you were playing?
That was an interesting story. That is a 1953 King Moretone bass that I purchased from the estate of the late John Denver.
Really?
He owned the bass. I mean, he obviously wasn't a bass player. He was a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
But that bass was in his studio.
Yeah.
And so I got it. It was all really dinged up, and I put a lot of
How'd you
work
find
into it. Found it on Craigslist, and I got it from a gentleman in South Pasadena.
No kidding.
And showed me pictures of him and John Denver and the bass and everything. Yeah. But it was just, I put some work into it. I did a lot of the work myself, so it came out pretty good. I love the sound of it, and I'm using on that recording a pickup. Crevo Pickups sponsors me, so I'm using a Crevo pickup on the bass, which is unique because it's on the fingerboard. At the bottom of the fingerboard is not in the bridge where most pickups would be for an upright. And so what that does is gives me a different sound. It gives me a darker sound, but still bright at the same time. But it allows me to be on a stage as loud as a drum kit or as loud as a guitar. There's some videos of me online with Marco Miniman playing the upright, and I'm using, we're kind of trading solos.
Yeah.
And I'm using that pickup on the upright. So the great thing about it is Marco can hit. He's a powerful drummer. And it's great because it allows me the volume. I can match the volume and it won't feed back. But
so that's the idea about it.
I don't think that was what they had initially envisioned, but that's what I have found.
Yeah.
It allows me to play as loud because other pickups that are right where the bridge is, the sound of it can feedback easier through the F hole or just through that region. But with it being away from there, there's virtually no pickup. So I can crank up the amp and be as loud as a Marshall stack on the upright.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that opens up a whole new can of worms.
It does. Yeah.
Get maybe 5 Marshalls and get your upright.
Well, no. I mean, I'm saying if I'm with a guitar player and he's got a big Marshall stack, I can be just as loud on the upright and not have to worry about feeding back.
Yeah.
And the amp is like right there. So yeah, I love it. Crevo pickups.
Are they the only ones that do that?
Yeah, it's an original thing that they've got, and it's a relatively newer company.
Yeah.
But I love them. They're out of Portland.
Good old Portland.
Portland. I love the Northwest.
I've never been there.
Was there recently. Did some shows there recently. And some clinics. Actually, it was I think it was like last year. You know.
What kind of thing were you doing?
I just did some guitar centers and some Sam Ashes, and then went on to Denver and did a great place called Rupp's Drums, famous drum shop there. And
were you doing drums or bass?
It's just a clinic. It was mainly a drum clinic.
Yeah. So how do you keep your chops up on the drums?
I play every day.
You do? You make sure?
Absolutely. And, Miles Davis talks about this. You may not be able to shed for 8 hours a day, every day, but sometimes it's touching your instrument and just having this more of being attracted to your instrument, thinking about it, seeing it, and actually playing it even for brief periods. I think if you have a routine, and I do, every day I play the upright, every day I play the drums. I may not necessarily play the electric, but the upright is more of a challenge, So I think people that are students, should take note that you may realize that, if your left hand is, weaker at something, then just practice your left. Do what you don't think you're as good at, because a lot of players, it's okay to specialize in one thing. Like if you are a drummer and you're more in the R&B vein, great. There's a lot of great gigs out there for you. But I think if you want to grow, you've got to practice things that you may not be good at. And I run into players that, practice your Latin, practice your odd meter, not just everything on the one. And if you are a drummer, do things with your left hand that you can't do. Be as good so you don't have any weaknesses. So that's kind of my thing, is just to focus on that.
As far as drums, what about your foot? What do you recommend for people on that with the hi-hat?
Well, I mean, I do different drills. I do different techniques. And I do a lot of paradiddles, and I play a lot of double bass as well. Literally, not just double bass pedal, 2 bass drums.
Yeah,
a lot. When it's possible. It's not always possible, but I try to, in my routine, do things that are a little bit intricate with the feet, and spin that off of rudiments with the hand. Back and forth, paradiddles between the bass and the snare, or the bass and the toms, and with each foot. And then I'll do a routine where I actually play everything instead of even if it's a simple 2/4 swing, or if it's a Latin 2/3 or 3/2 clave, I try to do that and reverse my limbs and do it on different limbs and do everything with the left foot. The kick on the left foot, the ride I have a left hand ride set up, in my kit in my studio, so that I'm doing everything I would do on the right with the left, not just polyrhythms. A lot of like a Carter Buford.
You can match them.
Yeah, exactly. I think the challenge though is for a lot of people, why they've gotten away from double bass, is having a consistent sound. And obviously it's a little bit more difficult to lug a second kick drum around. But at least in my personal development, I keep that, because sometimes I get called for a metal gig, of all things. I got called to do a metal gig in Las Vegas with a band a few months ago. So we can go there if we have to, but we like to keep it straight ahead, basically.
So you like 2 drums instead of just having the double pedal?
Well, if I can, but it's not always possible.
Yeah,
it's not always possible.
More about drums. What about the snares? What do you like?
Lately, my main snare has been a Gretsch Taylor Hawkins snare, and I love the sound of it. It's basically another thing too is I really love the British Drum Company snare. I was really blessed with that, because the British Drum Company, which is a newer company, if you haven't...
Is that the DBA? Is that the name of the company?
The company's called British Drum Company. I use a Bluebird snare on some of the album.
Yeah. And
the Bluebird snare is it's a great chrome snare. Those are two of the metal snares that I like using, in addition to the Yamaha snare or the Pearl snares.
So piccolo, that's kind of like passé now, right?
Not really. On the album, there's a song called Cyberfunk. I'm using a piccolo snare on that.
I got tired of the piccolo snare sound.
Really?
Yeah, for me.
You know what, Dave?
Got to have some guts in there.
Dave Weckl took that to a different dimension because he tuned it down. Back in the day, he used a piccolo snare and he tuned it down. It's like, okay, it's fatter, and it's still on top of everything,
Yeah.
It's all in the tuning.
So how do you mic your snare for recording?
I don't use two mics. However, I have done some recordings where there was a second mic, but not under where there were snare wires, but just kind of like on the side of the snare. I think that gives a nice sound.
What do you use, a 57?
I typically use 57s on the snare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think people like 57 so much?
It's a classic sound. It's narrow, it's focused, just one direction, and hey, I guess it's gotten the job done for decades. I wouldn't want that on a kick drum.
Yeah.
And where was I the other night? And they put a 57 on the kick. I did a gig, and I don't remember where it was, but they put a 57 on the kick. It's like, well, that's all they had, but I don't think it works on the kick, but it works on the snare.
What do you think about these mic simulators that they'll have the 57 and they'll have the others? What do you think about?
Like in Logic or something?
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful because...
Do you think it sounds true, though?
I think all of them are true to a certain extent. Obviously, I think we'd want to have the actual thing, but it's like a drummer setting up in an apartment. It may not be possible. So they use a V-drum kit, so it may not be financially viable for someone to have, the Neumann collection of mics and so forth. So they have these, you've got the plugins that will give you a similar sound. I don't think any of them is going to be identical, but it might mirror that sound to a certain extent.
Yeah. How do you approach initially recording that if you're going to sample those various types of mic simulators? What do you do? Just go with what you have first, and then?
Well, again, I personally don't use the simulators. Yeah. I use the sounds that you hear on the albums are the actual mic in the room.
Yeah.
The only simulators from any program that I may have ever used, and it wouldn't be the last album, but there may have been some amps that I used on for different guitar sounds.
Yeah.
In other words, I don't have a Marshall stack, but I may have wanted that, or I may have wanted a tweed kind of sound or a blues deluxe kind of tweed sound, and there's a plugin for that. But I wouldn't do that for drums. I'm using my actual collection of mics. I've some great Russian overhead mics, the Octava mics I use for the overheads. I like the actual mic. I like the actual hardware if I can use it.
So you use stereo room mics for your drum sound too?
Yeah, I use.
So how far do you set them back?
Probably about 4 feet from the snare.
Well, what's your ceiling like? How high is it?
It's a kind of a low ceiling.
Yeah,
it's a low ceiling. But I've got the room. I've got the room EQ'd so that it's really dead.
Yeah,
it's really dead. So it works.
You do your own EQing.
I do. Everything.
You know how to do that.
Do the recording, the mixing, and mastering. I do it all.
Well, I mean, as far as the room EQ.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I think in general, I can't tell much of a difference from the stuff that I've done at Faith House Studios from, AI Studios, which was $1 million studio.
Yeah,
and down in San Diego.
Yeah, well, back in the old days, I remember when they first had digital reverb, and you had to pay $200 an hour.
the lexicons, right?
To go to a studio, get that sound, and it's like, whatever.
Yeah, the old lexicons.
That's the great thing about all this technology.
Yeah,
it's like being in heaven.
It's affordable. It is. And, that's another thing, too, is I believe that if you know your gear and you spend time and you have decent ideas, I think you can get a great comparable product to someone that might have a much larger budget. You've got the time, you have the ideas, and you know the technology. I think because I found that getting a bigger sound didn't necessarily require me to having a big rack of outboard gear. I just knew how to manipulate Logic.
Yeah. Yeah. Now let's talk about weather report some more. We didn't talk enough about it.
Sure.
Let's talk about Jocko.
Jocko's, can't say enough about him. He's very much an inspiration to me. However, I have never, because I wanted my own identity, never tried to mirror, what he was doing. I appreciated, I respected, I learned about harmonics, being in high school from his recordings and so forth, his use, his facility of the instrument, but never tried to, do his licks, so to speak. Love Jocko. One of my favorites. I think, every musician's got their favorites, so he's one of the favorites.
Yeah.
On electric. And if I were to go down a really short lived, I love Patitucci.
Yeah.
What I like about Patitucci is his ability to go from acoustic to electric, effortless. Stanley Clarke also does that. Not just his electric, but I think his acoustic is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And he goes back and forth effortlessly. So those are some of my favorites. I love Wooten. I love Marcus Miller. But then if we talk about just pure upright, I've been kind of a student of Eddie Gomez.
Yeah.
And I've recently got hip to InHop, Niels Pedersen, who is from, I believe, Copenhagen. Did a lot of the, original recordings with Bill Evans before Eddie Gomez took over.
Yeah.
And just incredibly melodic. So it's like, I talked earlier about, your routine, your practice. So I practice more of the upright because I am pushing myself to be able to do just exactly and more on the upright than I can do on the electric. So instead of me practicing something that, okay, I'm cool in this, let me take this to a different dimension and do something that I'm not as comfortable with. So I focus on things that I may not be as comfortable with so that, I can be equivalent on each instrument.
So you find if you work on the acoustic, it's easier to play the electric.
Absolutely, because it's much harder.
Yeah, physically.
Much more harder. And you've got to think more about things until you get to the point where you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, and then as far as it being fretless, and then also if you go to your fretless space, there's a different scale. Ouch, pulled my tendon here.
It is
scale.
It is a different fretless. That obviously the spacing is a lot different, and I actually have a fretless with me, and it's different spacing. Different spacing.
Yeah, so you have to have a different mindset for that too.
You do, but again, there's really no substitutions, for the upright. However, I have an amazing electric upright from the company Stag, the electric double bass. And if I don't have, the space to bring an upright, I will often bring that if I don't bring a fretless, if I want something that's kind of like that sound. But what that does is it gives you the discipline and strengthens the hand for when you actually do have the upright, you're kind of used to that.
Yeah. How about rock bass players? Anybody?
Wow. Who do I like in rock? Billy Sheehan.
Yeah.
Flea. Those
you like Flea?
Yeah, Flea. I like Flea. Sheehan. I'd say kind of those two. I love rock. I love Geddy Lee.
Yeah.
Grew up listening to Rush, so I definitely like that.
What about Jack Bruce? Any comments about him?
Haven't listened to a lot of Cream.
Yeah.
But, definitely respect his work. And I'm familiar with his work. And, I know his son plays the heck out of some drums, but haven't...
Well, no, his son plays guitar and bass. Jack Bruce.
Okay, okay.
You're thinking of Ginger Baker.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Baker. That's right. But I'm familiar with Jack Bruce, and again, not super much a fan of Cream, but I respect their work. For the things they've done.
Yeah, and then the stuff that he did with Tony Williams. You ever hear that?
I did hear.
McLaughlin.
I did hear that. I didn't realize that was Jack Bruce on that stuff, but yeah, I did hear some of that stuff. Love Tony Williams as well.
Yeah, back on Weather Report. So with Jaco Pastorius, when he do you feel that when he joined, it brought the popularity of the band up more?
It increased it, tenfold.
Yeah.
Because they were like rock stars. From what I read, and I'm fortunate to have. I've got a downbeat from like 1978, and I keep it wrapped in plastic.
Oh, you do?
Because it's like a vintage downbeat with them on the cover. And yeah, they were like rock stars. They had like 4 or 5 tour buses, something like that, with the lights, the whole stage setup. I mean, who does that in jazz? I think the only band to ever mirror that would be maybe Chick Corea's Electric Band from the 80s.
Yeah, and Jean-Luc Ponty's band, too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but when he joined the band, it was Black Market, that album. You know that one?
Oh, yeah. That's a great album. That's 76, I believe 76 came out.
And my band, we opened up for Weather Report when that album came out.
Okay, in Ohio?
Yeah, and Jaco Pastorius, it was his 3rd day in the band.
Mm-hmm.
So he invited us back to the, hotel to hang out and drink a few beers and all that stuff. So we got over there, and he wasn't really known.
Okay.
So that's back in the cassette days, and so we're at the Holiday Inn, and he gives me the earbuds, and first thing I heard was Donna Lee.
Yeah.
That's going on, and then the next tune comes up, and I'm saying, I'm asking him, well, who's this on here? He said, Herbie Hancock, and I'm like, what? And then Sam and Dave, and I'm thinking, what?
And that was before the record came out, right?
Well, it had already come out.
Okay, you just hadn't heard it yet.
But he just joined Weather Report.
Okay,
his 3rd day in the band. Mm-hmm. And he was real quiet. He's a typical Florida guy. He had his Florida swim trunks on at the,
Jaco, yeah.
And he was just real quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So,
mysterious.
I never imagined. I remember, you had his bass there. It was next. I was sitting in a chair, and his bass was next to the chair in an anvil case, and then he pulled the frets out of it, and he had putty.
Yeah,
epoxy. And he had black nylon strings, though.
Okay,
I remember that, which I've never seen any photos of him doing it afterwards.
Because I think he switched to round wound strings.
Yeah.
Probably by Heavy Weather, I think he was probably using round wound strings.
Yeah, and I remember I've envied him. I remember, because he was with Weather Report, and and then I never imagined he would become the legend.
Yes.
That he is now.
Oh yeah.
So, but he had just joined. When they had released Black Market.
Right.
So in the sound check in the afternoon, we're. You get there in the afternoon, and we're all getting the sound together, and he was there with Alex Acuna, and they had like a separate snare on a pedestal with a couple of cymbals, where they'd do something, and then they'd have the snare separate from the kit. So Jaco's on there playing with Acuna, and they're just screwing around, and he's going.
Yeah, he was a great drummer too.
And then I realized later that became the beginning of Teen Town.
Mm-hmm.
He was messing around with that cadence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my Jaco story.
Nice. Back in the day.
Yeah, but Heavy Weather, that's one of my favorites. I love that album.
My favorite is Mr. Gone, and I was mentioning charts that I'm introducing to my band. That's another tune, Mr. Gone.
Yeah.
And that's probably my favorite album. Tony Williams is on there.
Yeah.
I love the song Pinocchio. They do a version of Pinocchio. Yeah.
Yeah. That I would say. Well, I did like I said, the with Miroslav Vitos, and then Johnson on there. Like Mysterious Traveler.
Yeah.
Those albums.
I sing the Body Electric.
But I would say my most favorite are with Jaco Pastorius.
Well, I'm not going to argue with that. Me as well, because I'm definitely a Jaco fan. And, I think Miroslav's tenure with the band was probably short-lived,
Yeah, it was.
Maybe for one album?
Two, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Alphonso Johnson, maybe not many more. I think Jaco had the most albums, right, with the band.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, but actually I did a show a few years ago and had a chance to hang out for a minute with Alfonso. This is a show in Burbank.
Yeah.
So in other words, he went on and then I went on just with a different unit.
Yeah.
And he's kind of another player that's kind of doing more upright lately as well.
Oh, he is now?
Yeah, he's playing a lot of upright.
Yeah. Is he still putting out albums?
I don't know if he's doing albums, but he's doing a lot of shows, obviously, and a lot of NAMM and clinic, that kind of thing.
How'd you like Victor Bailey?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. In fact, I was just looking at he was a logical succession in the band, after Jaco, similar, but still he brought his own thing to it. But he could, in other words, I think people at that point were used to hearing the fretless, and I think he did just enough of what Jaco did, but without actually trying to be Jaco. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
In other words, not everybody that plays a fretless bass is trying to be a Jaco clone. Some are, but I don't think that was the case with Victor Bailey.
Yeah. How do you feel about slap funk these days? It's kind of something of the past. What do you think?
I do a fair amount of that. 50% of what I do is rhythmic in that idiom.
Yeah.
Slapping, popping. I think it's great. I think first of all you got to play the song. And if the song calls for that, great. I think a little bit of that is good, but it's nice to give things space, let them breathe. A little bit of that, little finger, a little muting. It's a balance.
Yeah.
A balance.
Yeah. So we talked about drums. We're talking about bass.
Bass
and I'm
drums.
talking to Dante Fire. He'll be at Mario's place tomorrow night in Riverside.
Tomorrow night, yeah.
With his quartet. What time does it start?
Show is 10 o'clock. So if people should like to have a little dinner, have your little dinner, and then the music kicks in at 10. 10 till 1.
They've been doing jazz for how many years now?
Oh, my gosh. Since the 80s. The 80s.
Yeah.
And I first became, I guess, on their roster, so to speak, maybe almost 20 years ago. And off and on have done things at Mario's in different locations. I think I first started doing things with them when they were on the Spruce Street area. And they had like a grand piano.
Yeah, I like that setup over there.
Yeah, that was great. And I'm looking forward to eventually when they have, because they have got 2 stories there. I think it would be great to have the second level.
They're going to do that, you mean?
I think eventually they will probably do that.
Yeah.
I've talked to the owner about maybe doing that at some point. So
yeah,
that'd be cool.
So you've been playing there on and off for about 20 years.
Yeah. It's a one.
Oh, you said the 80s, though.
Well, no. I knew they've been around since the 80s, but I have been doing things there since probably like 99, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
90, 97, 98, 99.
So you're going to be there tomorrow night?
Be there tomorrow night.
Why don't you mention the players again? Yeah,
once again, tenor saxophone, Marcus Wilshire. The drums, Nat Scott. The guitar, Edgar Aldana, for tomorrow night. And some other great players, I'll just mention great drummer in San Diego, Russell Bazette, amazing drummer. So when I'm doing stuff down there, I've been working with him a lot lately. I'll be working with him on Saturday, Russell Bazette on Saturday, and Pete Thonis on Saturday at the Ventana Wine. Pete is a guitar player that used to be with Albert Collins, Buddy Guy. He was kind of like a second guitar player to those cats, so he's got the blues DNA, but he can swing and do some bebop and fusion as well.
And you said your drummer tomorrow night, he played with Jeff Lorber.
Yeah, he did some things with Jeff Lorber, from what I understand. I don't know how long ago that was, but it may have been brief. But he's also toured with a lot of people, of all things, he's an amazing cat, but of all things, he's very well rounded. Engelbert Humperdinck, I mean, just a big broad range of things from theater shows to, he's been doing a lot of stuff in Vegas lately, but so we're super glad to have him tomorrow night.
Yeah, and then that'll be the 5th tomorrow. Mario's place, Dante Fire, and you'll be playing bass.
Playing bass tomorrow, acoustic and electric.
Oh, you're going to do both?
Oh yeah. It's always part of the show to go from acoustic to electric.
What about some of the tunes you're going to play?
Well, some of the things that you've heard here we'll do, and then we have a great range of things from the songbook of some of the greats that we'll pick from. From the book. But really want to try as much as possible to focus on the albums and some of the things that are current. Like I shed the standards every day. I'm doing the standards just to, at some point to master them. But, I think we also have to be creative and to write, if we can. And, so it's about doing, what comes out of you naturally. Yeah. And promoting, your stuff as well.
And if you're just tuning in, it's Dante Fire, bassist, drummer on the show. He's checking his phone. Do we have any reception down here?
We don't. I was actually waiting for an email from a venue that I work at when I'm in the foothills. And if it's okay, I'll just mention them. It's a great place called the Lincoln House. Great house in the Covina area. So I'm looking forward to doing some shows in there for the people that are kind of in the foothills, Glendora, Covina, and so forth.
Well, what kind of music do they do over there? Everything?
Mainly jazz, blues.
Is this a new?
It's a newer venue, but I love it. I love the place. It's a great staff, the Lincoln House. So doing something there real soon.
Why do they call it the Lincoln House? Do you know?
I do not know. I would imagine it has something to do with the president, Abraham Lincoln, but I can't say for sure. But I think so, because when you look at the decor, it's kind of got a classic, decor of that era.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna be doing your also Sundays.
Yep, Sundays, Lake Elsinore, Pints and Courts. We call that Jazzy Sundays, hosted by Dante Fire. And so if you're a player, that's a place to keep in mind. We welcome, everything, pros, semi-pros, and so forth. Wonderful place, good dinner. Love the food there, and it's just a great staff. Can't say enough about Pints and Courts as well.
Why don't you talk about how important it is for younger players to know about music theory?
Well, I think it really goes hand in hand if you're trying to be an artist to have, some understanding of theory. And, I think, but at the same time, not everybody needs to necessarily have a degree in music, but it's important to have, at the very minimum, have some classes. So my college years, I was initially a music major and then switched to business and actually got degrees in business, bachelor's, master's, and associates in that area. But, the first, part of my college, I was a music major, so it took, a couple of years of the music theory. So I think it's important to be able to have a grasp of what it is that has been done and what you're doing, what you're trying to do, whether or not you actually, get a degree in it, at least you understand it to a certain extent. So very important, huge stuff, especially when you start writing and composing your own music. You've got to have that foundation, have that basis.
Yeah, and then you can speak the language more concisely and express your ideas to another person.
Absolutely, hugely important.
You want to play another one?
Let's do it.
Okay,
let's do it. Play something from this album here,
which is called
Stink Eye.
Why do you call it Stink Eye?
Well, I mean, look at that cover. What would you call it?
Pink Eye?
No, but
I don't get it. What's so bad Stink Eye about that photo?
You know what? Here's the thing with that. It's kind of like the concept of this album is that at the end of the day, there is an eye watching us.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
There is an all-present eye kind of watching us. Yesterday we got this presidential alert.
I heard about that. I didn't have my phone on.
Okay, well, I think everybody in the country, the millions and millions of people got the same alert. So anyway, at the end of the day, there is an all-present eye watching. So, you can read into that what you want, and you can also look at the fact that sometimes people, they cut you off in traffic. You give them the stink eye, so it means a few different
that's what
things.
you mean by stink eye.
Exactly. Is
that current terminology for that kind of a behavior?
Yeah, I would say
I didn't know. I'm not keeping up with all the current.
I got you.
The current oxymorons.
Well, I'm trying to keep up with as well, Tony. But yeah, it means a couple different things. But I love this album, and this album did well for me last year. Lots of airplay from a couple of the tunes.
What alternative facts?
Okay, yeah.
Is that what we?
Yeah,
that's on that one.
Yeah.
Is it mounted?
Let's get that one going. Yep, there it is.
Okay. Dante Fire will be at Mario's place tomorrow on the 5th in Riverside with his quartet.
And looking forward to doing that with the cats there. Again, another world-class place. Love Mario's place. Can't say enough, but very supportive, because there's not a lot of places left that do, offer a stage for a jazz musician. So kudos to them, Pints and Quartz and Ventana down in San Diego. Okay, we're ready to go.
Okay, and it's Dante Fire. And we've just heard Dante Fire. We can say it in the mic.
Alternative Facts.
Your new one. No, that's not. That's one from last year.
Yeah, it's from last year.
The release.
It's still relatively new. But yeah, Alternative Facts from the Stink Eye album.
Which I found out what Stink Eye means.
Yeah, and Alternative Facts is also kind of an interesting thing. It was a phrase that was in the news, a few years ago. Alternative Facts. Some things are not really facts.
Oh, you mean fake news?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh,
kind of.
I call it conjecture.
Okay, that's a good way to put it as well.
Well, we got 10 minutes left. It's Dante Fire. You'll be at Mario's tomorrow.
I'm ready to do it.
In Riverside.
Riverside. Good Riverside.
And then Sunday you're at
Pints and Courts, Jazzy Sundays.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday, Pints and Courts.
People can sit in.
Lake Elsinore. Yes, they can. So
what instruments are welcome?
All instruments are welcome. There is there's a back line. Yeah, so whatever you play, you are welcome.
Well, you better explain backline for some people that might not know what you mean.
Backline, good point. Backline is those essentials that you need, the amplifier for the bass. If you play keys, everything is there and ready to go.
Yeah, there was a point where I didn't know what backline meant.
Oh, okay.
Did that happen to you too?
I think
you weren't born knowing what backline means.
I think we all. I don't know how and when I learned. I think I may have asked the promoter. It's like,
what's backline?
Do I have to bring this way there? It's like, oh no, there's a backline there. So yeah, I learned.
Yeah, it's funny how stuff gets started by somebody. Just anybody started using it, and then it started to circulate. Then it's in a textbook.
Yep, that's how it
then
works.
It's in Wikipedia.
When enough people use the word, it becomes a real word.
What's this term? When did they start coming up with private jazz? When did you start to hear that one? You know about private jazz?
I think that's kind of a double-edged sword. I think personally, if you look historically at a lot of the venues on the East Coast, there's people that do jazz in their loft or jazz in their apartment. Or I know of in the San Diego area, there's a lot of private events because there's just not an influx of jazz clubs or venues, so people do them in their homes. That is probably one definition.
Well, you think that's how it started, the term?
Yes.
I see.
What would you say?
I never heard that term until a few years ago. It started to show up on the internet. I thought, what do you mean private jazz? I know what they mean, but
the
it's like, who made this one up?
Probably a wonderful jazz player that didn't have a place to play, so they did it at somebody's home, and that's taken off. It's really taken off.
Yeah, well, I was just talking about the term.
Okay.
I think it's all good about the other stuff. And well, Dante, we have 7 minutes left. Spill your heart out.
Hey, support the arts. Music is a great thing. Therapy to a lot of people.
Well, that is true, yes.
And if you, aspire to do anything good, you got to stay on it. And there's a lot of people that would probably try to discourage you or say, oh, you should do this, that, and the other.
That's right.
Follow your passion. If your passion is something that is innocent and at some point it may even help or heal people. It's a blessing to touch people in a positive way and to know that, what I do, or if you are a similar artist, what you do really impacts people. And another thing too is I think musicians themselves have got to support other musicians. I go to other cats' gigs sometimes. I went to one the other night, so it's nice when family or other artists or whatever, show up and support you, because at the end of the day, the artist in many ways is evaluated by, how many people are in the seats, not how well they play, but, how many people are in the seats sometimes. So that support is a great thing if you can.
What else? Anything else?
I think, wow, that just about covers it.
So you recommend practicing every day as much as you can. Your wife, you must have a pretty understanding wife.
She's amazing, and that's what I was saying again about having emotional support of what you are trying to do.
Does she play an instrument?
She doesn't, but she probably could have if she wanted to. She plays a little piano and she sings a little bit. But I think if she, at some point, if she really wanted to pursue that, because I think she has a lovely voice, but incredibly sweet and supportive, and I definitely appreciate that. And I think every artist needs that to a certain extent. I'm pretty independent, but even those of us that are most independent, at some point, you have to have a few people kind of supporting what you do, and I think that's the downside of people that are trying to control their own destiny. A lot of people think, they don't need anything. Well, sometimes they do as well. Show up to the gig, or if you can. Support is important if you can.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, because we only had a couple of minutes left, about what's going on outside of you. You're playing tomorrow night at Mario's, Dante Fire,
all weekend
in Riverside on the 5th, and then Sunday
the 6th at Ventana Wine in San Diego, or Escondido to be exact, and then back up in Lake Elsinore on the 7th. Lake Elsinore on the 7th, Pints and Court. So 5th, 6th, 7th.
Yeah, Dante Fire. And I wanted to mention Kayleen Peoples, along with Bunny Burnell. They're playing tonight at Bogies in Westlake Village. Tonight, the 4th. Bogies. And then Eric G., drummer Eric G. and his Eric G. Project, they're going to open up for Tito Puente Jr. over at the Canyon Club in Santa Clarita on October 19th. Eric G. Project, that'll be coming up too. So
I like Eric G.
You know Eric?
Yeah, we've done some gigs together.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, Eric's my dog up in the Thousand Oaks area, or
well, he's up there in
up the coast, central coast.
He lives up there in
Fresno. Is it Fresno?
No, I can't remember where he lives.
I've been to his house. Been to his studio.
Have?
We've jammed.
Oh.
I don't know what I was doing there, but I went there with my wife and we played. We both played the drums. He's a Yamaha cat.
Palmdale. He lives in Palmdale.
Okay, that's right. That's what it is. Palmdale. Yeah, I was okay. I know what it is. We did a gig. We did a gig. Eric and I did a gig a few years ago at we did a jazz gig in Palmdale, and either before or after, because we spent the night in a hotel. The next day, we went to his house, my wife and I, and jammed out, on the drums. It's great. Talking drums. He's a Yamaha cat.
Yeah. So Eric G's going to be opening up for Tito Puente Jr. October 19th at the Canyon Club in Santa Clarita. It's coming up. So we got 2 minutes left, and then we'll finish with another one of yours.
Sure, let's do it.
Which, what do we talk about? Oh, I'm going to leave it up to you. Which one would you like us to hear?
Wow. Let's go with, let's do something on the old school fusion tip. This song is Cousin It.
Oh, Cousin It.
Cousin It. Song 12.
Yeah, one of my favorite characters. What track is that on?
This is track 12.
We should at least say goodbye.
Okay, well, let's say, we'll never say goodbye. Say we'll see you.
See you later.
See you when we see you.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Dante. It's been a lot of fun to talk to you.
Thank you, Tony. It's been too long. I haven't seen you in a few years, so it's great to see you again.
You too, Dante. So one more time, you'll be at Mario's tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, Mario's. Doing
in
a
Riverside.
lot of originals, and then a lot of great tunes.
And Sunday.
A lot of people. Sunday, we'll be at Pints and Courts, Lake Elsinore.
Okay, and then we're going to hear Cousin It.
Cousin It from
off of
the Stink Eye album.
Okay,
Cousin
Dante Fire. Okay, thank you, Dante.
Thank you.